Just when you thought it was safe to put on your headphones, you entered the darkest, wildest, sexiest depths of technology. And here to keep you on the bleeding edge of science, tech, and ethics is the Rated R radio star, the man of tomorrow, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He has a huge brain. And now, here's Brian.
Oh, the golden stallion, the man of tomorrow, the Rated R radio star, baby, is here for you for a little Sovryn Tech. Kind of on location here, so if I sound a little different, maybe I sound a little extra juicy, I don't know. But if I sound a little different, that's why. We got a lot to get into this week. A lot of crazy stories. I mean, a lot of shakeups happened this week. Like a lot of crazy, honestly, a lot of crazy little stories. And this has nothing to do with anything blockchain related. In fact, I'll tell you right now, next week, we're probably going to do a whole episode that's just going to be about all the shit that's happening, effectively in the Bitcoin and blockchain space. You know, there's Bitcoin Cash as compared to Bitcoin. Then there's the parity wallet situation that happened. I mean, there's a whole slew of things, really going on. That's just to name a couple. But I want to see some of the fallout still of a lot of this. I'm recording this on a Saturday right now. It's actually July 29th, 2017. And I'm recording this. If I talked about what to do about Bitcoin Cash and all that, do you use Electrum Cash, which that's kind of sketchy because, we don't know much about the developers or, checking out that code and everything yet. But, that's one of the solutions available right now. I think if you want to take advantage of things like Bitcoin Cash, I'm pretty sure you already know the score of what's going on. So I think it'll be far more interesting to just talk about the fallout from all of that. So next week, probably, not guaranteeing this, but probably going to be a very blockchain centric episode. I know people love it when I talk about that. Honestly, I kind of hate it because I think it's all such I mean, Bitcoin's not bullshit. Zcash is sure as hell not bullshit. But a lot of what goes on in that whole space, I really feel like a lot of it's gotten away from control by the everyday person, which is one of the things that, where I started to get less enthused about various blockchain technologies because it lost its community, its grassroots feel, and that's what really excited me about it. But that's not to say that, I'm against blockchain technology. I think it's wonderful. Like I said, I think Bitcoin is great. I love Litecoin. I think Zcash is wonderful. I think there's tremendous projects still being developed. Yours.network, all these different things. So anyway, you know what? In fact, just to mention that, if you want to keep, let's get this sponsor right out of the way right now. If you want to keep an eye on what's going on in the blockchain and Bitcoin space, I'll tell you one of the best websites to do that is CryptoCompare.com. CryptoCompare.com, I say this every week, it is a tab that I just leave open at all times, just to keep an eye on the price of things and whatever. And we're definitely, the next week, up or down, things are going to be a rocky road. I don't think there's any way around that. Yeah, CryptoCompare.com, I really appreciate them sponsoring Sovryn Tech. They offer, it's a wealth of information there and a great way to get social when it comes to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in general. So you do want to check that out. Just go to CryptoCompare.com because right now is the time to keep an eye on this stuff. We do live in exciting times when it comes to cryptocurrencies and all the rest of it. But anyway, so blockchain-centric episode definitely coming up in the near future. I want to tell you again, quick, look, if you're not on board with the Sovryn Tech newsletter, you are missing out. You are really missing out. Now, if you just sign up for it, it doesn't give you the past issues yet, but let me tell you what happens. So next week, the week following, or the week that this episode is fresh, that you're listening to, episode 236, the third issue of the Sovryn Tech newsletter will be coming out. Right now it's bi-weekly. It's probably going to become weekly in pretty short order. Okay. But when you get the third issue, you can open that up and it will give you access to all of the back issues as well. from the third issue, like, you know, and I might put a link on at zog.email, which is my main website. I might put a link there to where you can find the directory of all the issues of the newsletter. And you can even, I think you can even sign up with the RSS, but really, you know, just get these things fresh as they come out. That's the best way to guarantee it. People love these newsletters, especially the short fiction, which I've already got short fiction planned for some time. I mean, like, I'm ready to go as far as that goes. It's everything else within the newsletter that, you know, that I collate and put together, and people just really, really love it. They enjoy the videos, all the stuff that I put into that. And I'm really honored by that everybody's enjoying it. It's an email newsletter is just, that's the guaranteed way to reach, you know, my audience. I mean, another thing that's been very popular is the Sovryn Tech Facebook group. I mean, and I have gotten such tremendous fucking response from the Secret Sovryn Tech Facebook group, which if you want to join that and you haven't yet, okay, you need to friend me on Facebook first. Okay, facebook.com/Brian Sovryn, and then message me. You have to friend me first, then PM me, and I'll, you know, private message me, and say you want to be in the group, and I'll get you, you know, into the group. Because, man, you know, I mean, like, you can't believe the reviews that I've gotten from that. I mean, people just saying that it's literally their favorite place on the internet is that group. I mean, that's how much they enjoy what's going on there. We have a good time. We have a sexy time. We have all kinds of times. And it is a group that's a lot of fun. And you can be serious too, you know? You know, actually a Sovryn Tech listener, a patron, actually, which if you want to become a Sovryn Tech patron as well to get even more content, holy shit, just go to sovryntech.com or patreon.com/sovryntech and you can become a patron. Got new patrons. There's new patrons every week, and I'm so honored by that. And we're getting close. We're getting close to some of the first goals, that I've had set up, you know, for Sovryn Tech for some time now. So that's great. But I had a patron. She shared with me changes that are coming to Facebook groups, like all kinds of wild changes. And some people don't know exactly how they'll take shape, but some of it has to do with ads. Other parts of it has to do with scheduling, which the scheduling part is exciting for me because, I make every morning, I do what I call an inspirational and contemplative art post. And it's usually some kind of sexy, you know, very sexy, fantastical art, of some kind. And, you know, I mean, and understand the group's called Sovryn Tech Uncensored. Like, sex gets talked about. I don't care if there's nudity in there. You do whatever the fuck you want. You know, I mean, I'll ban anybody for any reason that I care to have, or any lack of reason that I care to have. But, you know, people feel comfortable and they're letting all kinds of stuff, you know, hang out. And I think that that's wonderful. But anyway, so the scheduled posts, that'd be great, because then I could schedule those art posts like a week ahead of time and all this like that. That's really cool. But here's the thing, you know, with Facebook groups and with anything that really relies on a third party is that you are at the whims of what services they allow and, you know, what they go for. I mean, because the article I was reading was saying, yeah, maybe you don't want to start a Facebook group because now you're losing control and maybe people won't get posts from it, or, you know, other kinds of bullshit will happen with Facebook groups. And it was ironic too, because I had been saying for the past 2 years, I said, look, Facebook's going to be concentrating on groups. And now this email comes out and it's like, oh, Facebook is a new concentration groups. It's like, no, I knew that 2 years ago. I mean, I didn't know everything else that the post said, so I was glad it got shared with me. But I'm like, yeah, I already knew that this is where it was going because, and I based that knowledge upon the Dunbar number, that you can only handle so many people, you know, and like meaningfully interact with so many people. And that's why I think groups are so popular, because it kind of whittles down the craziness, you know, kind of the more open craziness of interacting with everybody that's on Facebook, or, you know, however that takes shape. But really, you can, you know, I can, in a heartbeat, however Facebook chooses, I can lose absolute control of that group. As great as that group is, as much as people love it, I mean, it could just go away. So, you know, the email newsletter, the email list that I have is just the guaranteed way. Nobody controls that. Only I control that. All right. And as long as you have the email address, you know, it's just a guaranteed way to be able to reach, you know, Sovryn Tech listeners, the Sovryn Tech audience with all kinds of wild shit. And so that's why I make it available. The other guaranteed way to do it is, you know, I have the IRC channel. Of course, I have Sovnet, which you can get to at zog.email. But anyway, it's really important. You know, if you haven't signed up for the email newsletter, if anything, and look, I'm not going to give your email address away to anybody. I'm just saying, if anything, just having your email address is a great way for, I mean, what happens if, I think I said this last week, or maybe it was on a Patreon episode. I said, what happens if SoundCloud really does tank? Really does go the way of the dodo, and then you lose the Sovryn Tech feed. If I had every Sovryn Tech listener's email address, I could instantly send out an email, say, here's the new feed. Everybody could update their podcast apps, and, there'd be no break in the action. I mean, there's other solutions that I have too, but you get my point. So really, even if you don't want to read the newsletter, it is so helpful for me to have your email address. And like I said, I'm not going to give it to any third party. I'm not sharing it with anybody. I'm not trying to sell you shit. I just want to be able to have that guaranteed. I want to be able to keep in touch with my audience. That's it, So anyway, enough of that. I've been spending 10 minutes talking shop talk, and you don't come here to listen to that. Let's get in to the stories, baby, because we've got some beauties, that's for sure. And why don't we start the show off with a little bit of good news? We don't get to do that too often. I actually got a couple bits of good news here that are very interesting. The good news is that by 2020, Adobe is finally going to stop supporting Adobe Flash. Finally. And this is the warning. Everybody, you've got about 2.5 years to get your shit together, convert stuff to HTML5 or whatever you're going to end up doing, and no more Flash. You're done with it. And thank you, because it is time for this, potentially malicious software to just go the way of the dodo. I mean, the internet is so far past, the tech world is so far past, using Flash. Just end it. Now, maybe I will say this, I will caveat with, I understand that some people play like games, or that there's certain software or anything like that actually uses Flash for it. I guarantee you that there's going to be some kind of software, some kind of container software. Maybe Chrome will even keep Pepperflash in it, where you could take, what is it, SWF? Is that, it's been so long since I've messed with Flash content. If it's SWF or something, you can just drag and drop it into that container file that'll play Flash content. And then you can just do it within a sandbox, little app. I guarantee you, I mean, that stuff kind of already exists, but I guarantee you that's going to be here. So if you're sweating, but what about my game, or whatever, like Super Mario Brothers Crossover or something, which I love that game too. And yes, it's built on Flash, or, what is it? A Bobo's Big Adventure, right? Both awesome games, both Flash games. There's going to be ways to play them. Don't worry. But it's good that finally the internet is going to get the fuck off of Flash. Now, if we could only get it off of JavaScript, of course, that's never going to happen. At least not. I mean, that's going to be another 20 years, as much as JavaScript is really killing the internet experience. But I think this is great news. I mean, really, set off the fucking fireworks, baby, because, for Flash to finally be done and no longer supported, yes. No more, and send the goddamn signal out there. So kudos to Adobe for finally killing that. Now, in some other good news, this is really cool. Last week we were talking about during the foreplay, which is, the opening that we're in right now, where we discussed just the little stories. Last week in the foreplay, and really this could be tool of the week, at some point, but we'll talk about it here. We talked about Amazon, is it Anytime? That's their messaging service, their messaging app that they may be releasing. Again, we don't know that they're actually going to release it, but it certainly sounds like they're going to. I mean, they're taking it very seriously, and it sounds very feature rich. But we talked about that. Well, here's another messaging app. This one I actually recommend effectively without reservation, other than the reservation that it's in beta right now to understand that. But this is one not coming from any major tech company. It's by a development team called the Briar Project, which admittedly I don't know a whole lot about, but you better believe people are going to be combing the shit out of this code. I mean, because its claims are pretty bold, of what it can do. So it's called Briar, just the Briar app. And this is really, really slick stuff. Just Briar. That's all it's called. I'll leave a link in the show notes for episode 236 where you can find out a little more about it, and you can get the download link for it. But the claim to fame here that this can do, and there's actually a whole lot to say, but it is a messaging app that is integrated with Tor. Now, for it to, and it's only on Android, by the way. So if you're an iOS user, you're out of luck. The interesting thing is that it uses Tor, but as far as I can tell, you don't have to run Orbot. Normally, to run apps through Tor on an Android device, you have to install Orbot from the Tor project. It was the Guardian project that was developing it more active. Anyway, so normally you'd have to get Orbot, but in this case, you don't have to. But there's a lot of other nice little things about this. So that's great that it's using Tor. So it is the Android mobile version of, say, Tor Chat. Okay, that's the comparable use here. And Tor Chat, of course, is another great project, but that's mainly only for desktop. So it has that capability, of anonymizing what you're doing through Tor. That's great. Everything's being encrypted. That's great. Here's some of the cooler parts, though. If you remember the app FireChat. FireChat was this app from the company OpenGarden that allowed you to communicate only using Bluetooth. I think it could use other protocols, but it could use Bluetooth to do that. FireChat seems to have kind of gone by the wayside. FireChat. And I don't know exactly what's going on with that, but Briar can also use, again, it's an encrypted messenger. It can also use, it can use almost any radio that your smartphone has. It can use just Bluetooth. So it can be done locally. It doesn't have to go over the big bad internet, right? It can use Wi-Fi. It can use Wi-Fi direct, or it can use the internet. And you have all the options. When you open up the app and you set it up, it's going to ask you create a username. Now, it is in beta, and it comes up with a message that says you have 88 days left with this account, and then everything will be deleted. So I'm guessing they plan to be out of beta in 88 days. And everything you do within the app up until that point, or once it comes out of beta or after this 88-day period, will end up getting deleted. So keep that in mind. Don't, you might want to screenshot or whatever your history is going on. Now, some people are probably like, well, but will it be like Signal where it keeps you from screenshotting, your messages and everything? Look, folks, all you need to do, this blocking screenshots is kind of bullshit. Because all you need is just another camera. Have another little extra phone, like an old phone of yours that has a camera on it, and you can just take pictures of whatever the fuck you're typing in Signal. Like this idea that this app keeps you from screenshotting things is stupid. It doesn't. That's no sense of security whatsoever. I mean, maybe it'll deter the average person because it's one extra step that they have to take, and they don't want to have to break out another camera, whatever that happens to be able to take the picture. But folks, there's no point to integrating that into messaging apps. I honestly, by and large, if it's not hard for them to do and they want to bake it in, fine. Because like I said, it could deter some people, but really it doesn't solve jack shit. Okay. Same thing with time-based messages that it's going to get deleted. Look, all people need to do is just take another camera and take a picture of the fucking time-based message. I'm not opposed to time-based messages. I think that's great. Okay. And again, just that little extra step of having to have an extra camera handy, really can stop people perhaps from taking pictures of things or whatever. But let's be clear here that those kinds of features, they're not security theater, but they're not far from. Okay. It's so easy to get around. All you need is another fucking camera. And who the hell doesn't have another camera laying around, after a fashion. So anyway, but this Briar again has really cool features. So first off, it can communicate without a data connection, to your ISP or to your telco or something. It can go straight through Bluetooth. That's great. The other nice thing of what it can do is it has a lot of the features kind of that Telegram has been trying to bake in. It has groups. You can do group chat. You can do one-on-one chat, and you can do group chat, which is really nice. Then it also has forums. There's some really interesting things being done here. This is definitely, Briar is trying to be a platform, and for it to be, based on messaging through Tor, this is really cool. So it has forums, and, just picture it just like internet forums, just in a mobile design, in a mobile language. You can reply to everything within it. People can reply within a certain forum and all that. It works just like forums that online, which I think that's pretty slick. So that's a nice add-on. Then it also has blogs. Yeah, it has a whole blogging platform. you know, and you can like people within your contacts list, you can reshare the blogs to other people in your list. Like the blogs just go out to anybody in your contact list will get a notification, you know, like a notification will come up that, oh, there's a new blog post from this person, and you can choose to accept it or deny it. I mean, this is nice. This is an entire Tor messaging, Tor social platform being developed here. I am really excited about this, and I hope that this gets traction. Another nice feature about it. There's a lot I could talk about. I've been messing with it all week, and have been very impressed so far with what I found. But another nice feature that it has is the ability to, well, not the ability, but how you get more contacts, how you add people. It does not scan your contact book. Okay, that's good. It does not. What you have to do is you have to scan each other's QR codes effectively in person. Now there's ways around this. Okay, you could just you could take a screenshot of your QR code and send it to somebody. Like maybe you could PGP email it or signal it to somebody, and then they could scan your QR code and then they could add you as a contact. The thing is it has to kind of go both ways. Like you have to scan their QR code and they have to scan your QR code to be added on as a contact. So this is the best way to do an encrypted data handshake. I love this. In fact, there was a messaging app that did not take off that I was really excited about, and it came out maybe 3-4 years ago for Android. I want to say it was called Zen. Not to be confused with like Zencash or something like that. But I think it was called, I know it began with a Z, whatever it was. And that was the thing, is that it was kind of enticing you to have a local community around you that you use for the messaging app, because you had to scan each other's QR codes, to be added on as a contact. Now, I mean, there's a lot of great benefits to this because for starters, you're not, it's not scanning your contact list. That's great for an app not to do that. And it really only adds the people that you go out of your way to add on, which I also like that because it's kind of a careful curation of your contacts. In fact, Ernie Hancock, he constantly complains about the fact, cause, what's the first messaging app that I recommend? And of course, I'll even recommend it over Briar, at least at the moment, is the Signal app, right? Now, Briar might get to the point to where actually it will be the superior, app to use. And some of the features I really like about it, because it can be kind of federated and all that and can work without, having, a telco, connection to Verizon or AT&T, without mobile data. He complains about it because it needs your phone number. I completely understand that. I think I understand why it wants your phone number, and it makes life easy for everybody, and it creates an instant verification instead of having to go through the process that I just described with Briar, right? Even though you still want to compare, like key codes if you can in person with Signal. That's kind of the way to do it. But anyway, he complains about that. He complains about the fact that it needs the telcos, all complaints that I completely understand. Well, here's Ernie Hancock. In my opinion, here is Ernie Hancock's app, that in my opinion, I think he should be looking for. Now, I mean, there's ways, like I said, there's ways around adding contacts that are far away from you. You could do it if I'm not saying do this, but I'm just saying you could use a video messaging. I mean, you could use, Skype, I guess. But are you worried that the NSA is looking at your Skype and they're going to intercept your private keys or, your public keys or whatever as you scan each other's things over video on the screen? You could use Riot, that's another great messaging app, kind of an IRC replacement of sorts, that you could use that has encrypted video chat into it. And so then you could use that to maybe scan each other's keys. I mean, a lot of great options here. But this is, in my opinion, this is genuinely exciting. Like this is a really exciting development. And I want to use it more often. The only thing is I hate the fact that in 88 days it's going to delete everything that I do on it. But otherwise, I think it's really cool. I mean, again, you have the group feature, you have the blog feature. I could get everybody on Sovryn Tech, using this. We could have the RetroShare community. We could have the Briar community. I mean, you could have so many different, there's so many great options, out there now. And this isn't for desktop. I would recommend that they get working on a desktop client as well. But it's never going to, as far as I can tell, it's probably never going to work on iOS, because of that built-in Tor feature. I don't know how well that would bake into iOS. So, but Briar, very exciting. Has a lot of great features. Looks like it could become its own entire social platform, like with the forums, with the, where it could become like an encrypted Tor Reddit effectively, with the blog posts, which that's really cool because, people could take advantage of that. I certainly would type blog posts on it. Absolutely. And what? So if it's only ever on mobile, well, then I hook up my Bluetooth keyboard and I fucking type out a blog post. I mean, I hook up my Bluetooth keyboard to my phone all the time. Just awesome features. I love this. So, and I already have some people added and it's pretty cool, using it. So do check out the Briar, app. It's actually in the, there's a link for it in the show notes. Yeah, though, I'll tell you, like, I really hope this thing takes off. I am, like, my subdued sound perhaps is not relaying how excited I am about something like Briar and especially the features within it. I mean, this is really, really cool. All right. So let's talk about something that's kind of cool coming from a company that's not cool at all. That being on Google Street View. Of course, we hate Google on this show. But on Google Street View, oh, and don't tell me, yeah, but you're complimenting Android and Android is Google, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. Android can exist completely without Google. It does not require Google, and Google is, if anything, killing Android. Holy fuck. I had to, on my new phone, I have the Moto E4 that just came out. It wanted me to re-enter my Google credentials for a certain app. And because I have my default web browser set for Firefox, it said, oh, no, you can't, like, it wouldn't let me go to the permissions because it wants to use Google Chrome to access permissions for other apps and everything. Now, I understand the security features of all that, but bottom line being is that I had to go turn Firefox off of default on my phone just so I could log into something. I mean, there's no reason that can't be done independently. They didn't need to, they didn't need to bake Chrome in that deeply, into Android. This is just more of Google turning Android into really the Google OS instead of it being the open platform that I like to compliment that Android was and somewhat still is. So don't give me that shit that, don't make fun of Google. They make Android. No, they're making the Google OS. They've killed in many ways, they've already killed what makes Android great. They're sinking their teeth in more and more, though I will give them the compliment, that the Google Plus app is no longer fucking required. Like that no longer comes with a stock, version of Android, which more or less the Moto E4 has. That used to be required, and, Google Plus is such a fucking waste. It's interesting that also, I guess this week, I didn't have this in my show notes, but it's something I heard about. Google was sending out emails to certain users saying, would you like to beta test certain features within Google Plus? I mean, they're kind of not quitting with Google Plus. I don't know what they have in mind. I don't know what these beta testers are going to be going through, but I'm still in awe that it's a thing. Not to say that I think Google Plus was ever really a failure. Okay. I mean, Google itself, causes its own apps to be failure because they stopped giving it, they stopped giving them love or they just cancel them outright, which is why I'd never rely on a Google service for fucking anything. Okay. Cause they'll kill any service willy nilly. But yeah, I mean, I know for a while Google Plus had, I talk about this all the time. Every social media site, almost every internet service is compared to the user numbers of Facebook, which is totally unjustified and unfair. Because Google Plus had plenty of users, had millions of users. Millions of users is a fucking success. But nobody else sees it that way because it's not Facebook and because not everybody's on Facebook. But, by the metrics, just looking at it objectively, no, Google Plus was a wild success. With that many users, it's just, there's that narrative that, well, if you don't have Facebook's numbers, if you don't have 600 million users or something like that, which there's very few other social media platforms that have that kind of, pull, that kind of, those kind of user numbers. Maybe Line and WeChat might be the only other ones that have anything remotely close to the billion or however many accounts that Facebook has. But then most Americans are too stupid to know about Line anyway. I mean, these things are successes. Just nobody thinks about it that way. But whatever. Anyway, I digress. That's not what I wanted to get into. Google Street View now has, where you can do a Street View, kind of 3D, tour of the International Space Station. So for, my fellow fans that are really into, that are into space like I am. In fact, I've gotten a lot of very gracious, very nice emails from people, saying that, like that my passion for getting into outer space, my passion for the stars, is really infectious, and they're really like they love it. They love hearing about it, which is great because I've talked a lot about space, going to space and all this, because again, I think it's happening in the next decade. I've talked about it quite a bit, in 2017, and so I'm glad that people aren't just freaking out and saying, oh, screw this, I don't want to hear about space anymore, I'm done. No, instead they find it exciting. They find it, like they said, infectious and all this. And I think that's, I'm so glad that that's the case. Now I want to change things up here a little bit for the foreplay. A couple stories here to really talk about. And really a couple of realizations that I've had, in relation to, well, Jeff Bezos. I know, I'm talking about Amazon again. Well, I think that there's an insight to be shared here, that I think is important. And this came to me, we were driving, I was, talking with the lovely and hyper intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. And, I mean, it's true. She and I almost 24/7 have the most epic fucking conversations. I mean, we talk about the biggest stuff. We talk about the little stuff too, but we talk about the biggest stuff, the big picture. I mean, the 40-foot view, the whole thing. I mean, we really, and I love it. It's one of the reasons I love her so much. One of the billions of reasons that I love her so much is that we can tackle like the biggest of subjects and it's no problem. Nobody goes glassy eyed ever. It's so engaging and so beautiful. I wish everybody could have a relationship like that. Anyway, so we were talking about, kind of Amazon and things, things happening because again, Amazon has been a lot, very much in the news lately. And what happened this week, and this isn't necessarily what precipitated the conversation. It was actually something to do with Elon Musk. But what happened this week was for a little while, Jeff Bezos was the richest man in the world at $90.9 billion. And he was besting, of course, Bill Gates, which Bill Gates was at $90.7 billion. But inside of a few hours, there was an investor's correction of sorts. And then Bill Gates ended up becoming the richest man in the world again. But for a little while, it was Jeff Bezos. Now, I felt very confident about that because, people shared, particularly on social media, they shared with me, they said, hey, check this out. And they said, the reason we're sharing this is because Brian, we knew, you told us, you were right. You were absolutely right that this guy was going to be the big deal. There was other stories now that a lot of brokers, a lot of analysts are saying that Amazon is actually going to be the company that will be the first $1 trillion company in the world. As to where most analysts over the past few years have been saying it would either be Alphabet/Google or Apple. I told you 4 years ago, I said, no, Amazon's going to be, I said by 2017, Amazon's going to be the company to beat. That's exactly what fucking happened. And that, and that they would be the first $1 trillion company. Now, finally, the rest of the world is finally fucking caught up. Okay. But, like a lot of people shared it with me because they said, oh yeah, no, I'm sharing this because you were right, Stallion. And thank you for that. But anyway, so I came to this realization because there was a story that made the rounds, I think last week, that was all about, how Elon Musk was telling a group of American governors saying you need to start regulating artificial intelligence before it's too late. Now, I think that there is a degree of fear mongering going on here. But I think there's something bigger going on. Well, first off, I don't think, kind of that Skynet level artificial intelligence that everybody's worried about. I'm not just talking about maliciousness. I'm talking about, the abstract notion of that, of an intelligence greater than a human, etc. I don't think that's happening. And there's a lot more voices out there now, thankfully, saying, hey, we need to calm down. AI is nowhere near getting to that level. We are we're at such a primitive level as far as anything looking like what you would call AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, which would be something that can match, the human mind. I'm comforted to hear that. But here's kind of the realization that came to me, is that really in the tech world, and maybe a little bit beyond, what we've really got going on right now, it's Jeff Bezos versus Elon Musk for a lot of reasons. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yes, both of them have space companies. That's something. Okay. But what I think Elon Musk is that dynamic figure that every other company, every other tech giant, every investor, okay, or venture capitalist or whatever, can get behind, because nobody, like, I mean, yeah, you can invest in Amazon, right, and kind of ride those coattails, but you have no influence over Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is going to do what Jeff Bezos does. And the investors that have been with him for decades or for years are, just, they're going to be yes men to him. And he's even if he has little falls, kind of like, the Amazon phone, the Fire phone, right? They know that eventually it's going to end up working out. There's something going on either at labs, 1, 2, 3 or whatever that is going to make magic happen. Okay. This is just the thought that came to me, is that, because it's interesting, Bezos is actually pro AI, as to where Musk is saying, oh, no, we need to be careful. We don't want to get into artificial, watch out for artificial intelligence. And Musk is also going after Facebook. And Facebook is certainly a player here too. What you have, I think you have Facebook, which is its own animal. Obviously it's the unicorn, right? It's the only real unicorn, as some people say. And we just got done talking about the user numbers that are just crazy for Facebook, and everybody bases their success, on Facebook. Certainly Amazon's success in a different sector is absolutely comparable to Facebook. I mean, like, in fact, I argue it's blowing it away, but regardless, what I think we have going on here is you have Facebook, you have Amazon, and then you have everybody else is rallying behind Elon Musk, because I don't think Musk is that brilliant of a guy. I don't think he has that many great ideas. I mean, he has some good ideas, like some of the ways he describes how he runs businesses and how he does business, I think are very intriguing. I agree with them. In fact, I've done write-ups about it, but yeah, I think everybody kind of wants to invest in, and kind of makes Elon Musk this media darling, just because it's the only person they can find that's dynamic enough to take on Bezos or Zuckerberg, because they can't really, like, Facebook doesn't need other companies. Facebook doesn't need Microsoft. Facebook doesn't need, even though Microsoft is a heavy investor in Facebook, but, Facebook doesn't need Apple, doesn't need any of these other, same thing with Amazon. Amazon doesn't need any of the other tech giants or any of the other investors or anything like that anymore. Not anymore. And so I think everybody else that's not Amazon or Facebook is just rallying behind Elon Musk. And I think that this anti-AI kind of initiative is maybe part of, how some of these other tech giants and how a lot of the tech world is trying to stall whatever Amazon or Facebook is doing. Because it is interesting that the two main guys that are very pro AI, are Amazon and, are Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg. But Elon Musk is the antithesis of that. And I think the reason being is that, yeah, he's the person that that you can still invest in, that these investors can still make money off of, that these tech giants can still put money into and make money off of. Because, again, Bezos and Zuckerberg don't need any of these other investors, or not really, or, they don't need the investors, or they don't need other tech giants. So I think there's a huge battle going on here. And that's saying nothing of, we talked about a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, we talked about QVC, to say nothing of that. That's a whole other ballgame that, yeah, I think people know, like, wow, these companies are going to end up eating the world, and there's got to be people that you rally behind. So I think that's really where the whole luster around Elon Musk comes from, is that he's being propped up by everybody that didn't get on board with Amazon or Facebook early enough. Like, he's their golden boy. And that doesn't necessarily make Elon Musk wrong, but keep that in perspective. I mean, it's a theory of mine, don't misunderstand me, but keep that in perspective, that anything Elon Musk does may just be to thwart anything that Amazon or Facebook is doing. Now, you could say, well, that's a good thing. Let's thwart Amazon and Facebook. And I completely understand that and may even support it. Okay. But just bear in mind that you might not be getting the reality from Elon Musk, and that a lot of his developments, don't, have a very specific goal, and that is stopping two companies from becoming even bigger, so that just some investors, not so that you can live a good life, but so some investors, get a new opportunity of some kind. So anyway, just a theory out there. But yeah, I think Elon Musk is the anti-Bezos. Like the Antichrist. He's the anti-Bezos, and the tech world thinks they need one. And well, anyway, I could get into, there's a huge conversation to be had around that. In fact, I'm going to get into it a little bit. I could wax poetical here. Here's the thing about Bezos. Okay. I don't like the idea of a monopsony. And I've said that I think that's what Amazon's going to become, of course. The Amazon World Domination Tour. It's a hashtag. I created it. I think Bezos is really trying. I think he genuinely, or I'm guessing there's two possibilities to this. There's the possibility that he just wants total fucking control of, everything that he foresees, or, of everything that he sees before him. He just wants absolute control, kind of that digital feudalism that we've talked about, right? There's that. Or Bezos, and I'm not saying that this is a good thing. I'm not saying that he's not fucking confused as hell for wanting this, or that anybody is confused as hell for wanting this. But I think that maybe Bezos is really trying to bring the Star Trek future into reality. I think Mark Zuckerberg is also trying for a very similar thing. I've talked about that many times, and it's part of the reason that he may be running for president in 2020. Because, well, I based a lot on that, is how he was recommending everybody read the Culture series. That's about getting to a post-scarcity society, right? I think that is really that might be one of Zuckerberg's goals. However, the question is that how do you get to that post-scarcity society? Is it even possible? Do the ends justify the means? Of course, I say never. Do the ends justify the means? So, you've big problems in there. But I think Bezos may be looking to do the same thing. He may be becoming a monopsony to where he can bring on, an absolute post-scarcity society. I think he's getting into the space business because he's going to start mining fucking asteroids. He may have great intentions. He may. I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm not saying I agree with what he's doing. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm trying to give you an objective analysis of what I think, may be happening here. And we know he's a huge Star Trek fan. He for some reason, he felt like, well, I want a little walk-on role on the movie Star Trek Beyond. I think that was a statement, just like Mark Zuckerberg telling everybody for his book of the fucking month to read the Culture series by Ian M. Banks. I think he had a point in saying that. Everything these guys do, it's all marketing and very calculated. All right. So I think he may be trying to do that, and doing so by creating a monopsony to where, he controls distribution. And once you become a monopsony and you're controlling distribution, you kind of, in a way, you could start controlling production, and you could enhance the production process. And maybe that's why he's so, gung ho on artificial intelligence, because that will allow for the more efficient processes and maybe the more efficient delegation of resources, and whatever else, to where you could have what is effectively, the Federation, the Federation of Star Trek on Earth. I really think he's pushing. Alexa is the fucking Star Trek computer. He beat Google to the punch. He really did. So, I could see that that's a future that he's shooting for. I'm not the only person that thinks that way. A lot of other people have noticed, in fact, good friends of mine have noticed that, and analysts, they've noticed. I think he's going for Star Trek. I think that's what he's shooting for. But, to get there, he probably thinks he has to fucking own and control everything, right? And, well, what's that going to look like in between? What does the in-between time look for, with that sort of thing? So, and Elon Musk certainly seems to be trying to bring on some kind of, wild future as well, going to Mars and all this other stuff. But again, with Elon Musk, I think the incentives are, there's a lot of investors who didn't get on board with Zuck or Bezos. And, they're trying to kind of ride these coattails to take advantage of that situation. As to where really Bezos and Zuck can really sort of do it for themselves. Anyway, it's interesting. I'm not going to go any further on that, but just planting the seeds of conversations that we may be having in the very near future on Sovryn Tech. That old Chinese proverb, right? May you live in interesting times. Whew. These are interesting times. Boy, you want to talk about interesting times? Hell, try being a Star Wars fan today. Talk about some fucking interesting times. Well, if you want to be a Star Wars fan, if you are a Star Wars fan, and you want to keep up with your fandom in the best way and with a lot of class, a lot of good times, a lot of fun, and right in your ears, right between your ears, I want you to listen to the Resist the Empire podcast. This is so cool. This has that liberty perspective, but it applies it to the Star Wars universe, and it gives you all the latest news. It gives you book reviews. And I love it. I know these guys. They are on top. They do what I like. They are on top of the latest stuff that comes out. Like as soon as release day hits, they have the latest book. They have, and they're already reading it and digging into it. I know it for a fact. And that's so cool. I love that in my podcast. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I know a lot of you are Star Wars fans. If you're not listening to the Resist the Empire podcast, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Go to resisttheempirepodcast.com. Start fucking listening to it. It's an awesome show. It's one of the best podcasts out there, and I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let us get back to the show. resisttheempirepodcast.com.
Story of the week.
It is time for Story of the Week. You probably already thought we just did Story of the Week with talking about Bezos and Musk. But yeah, you gotta, that definitely Clash of the Titans right there. No doubt about it. Now, we're going to get into a subject that, not the happiest of subjects to talk about. I'll try and lighten the mood maybe a little bit later on in the show. In fact, at the end of the show, we have my War of the Planet of the Apes review. That's going to be a hot one. So get ready for that. I'll make sure that there's fun stuff in the show. Don't worry. But we're going to talk about death. Certainly something that's been on my mind in the past week for various reasons. Tough subject to get into, and death is one of those things. I know there's some people who believe, I think it's called terror management theory, which is the theory that everything we do, everything within the human condition is all around trying to avoid death, and kind of, just comes out of this concentration on death and this knowledge of death, that humanity somewhat, or rare, somewhat, not, I don't want to say uniquely, but is a rarity for having. So, I don't buy into that. I've talked about that in the past, that I think that there's just as much like that the creative impulse is as much an inspiration. The sexual impulse, okay, yeah, which is part of the creative impulse, right? Because, sex co-evolved also for procreation, even though that's a part of sex that I have no desire and never will have a desire to partake in, but it's there. So it's kind of part of the creative process. I think that, I don't know what you would call the creative management theory. I think that's far more likely and valid than this idea of, that everything we do is based around our fear of death or something like that. Because, it is such a rarity in nature that to even have the knowledge of the concept of death, that for it to evolve that, I don't know. I don't know but that's another subject for another time, not what I want to get into. But death does, bring on, in my opinion, a lot of irrational, thinking on death, thoughts on death, and this includes concepts like the afterlife, I think bring on a lot of irrationalities, which I also think the afterlife is. I could talk about that more, but I want to get into the story here. So this is from CBC Radio, because it's the best place I could find the story, because everywhere else is sort of behind a paywall. And we know the internet hates a paywall. So, the story is it's from July 19th, 2017, how a man kept his father's memory alive using artificial intelligence. I'll read it here. James Vlahos lost his father, John, to lung cancer in February of 2017, but he still talks to him every week. That is, he talks to the version of his father that lives on through DadBot, an artificially intelligent chatbot he designed to retain his dad's experiences and personality. Quote, it either brings a smile to my face and a warm feeling sometimes, and at other times it brings a tear to my eye, end quote, the journalist from Berkeley, California told As It Happens guest host Helen Mann. Quote, it can make him feel closer sometimes, or I can be painfully aware that I'm talking to a computer program that I created that very clearly is not him, end quote. Now there's a key point there, Stallion breaking in. But let's read on. Maybe I'll get back to that. Vlahos documented his experience creating the chatbot in Wired magazine's August cover story, Dadbot. The bot operates through Facebook Messenger, and it carries out, oh boy, and it carries out conversations using John Vlahos's own stories and words. Occasionally, Dadbot will play a recording of his father telling a joke, spinning a yarn, or singing a song. It all started as Vlahos's project to document his father's oral history before he died. He recorded dozens of hours of conversations with his father about growing up, the son of Greek immigrants, attending the University of California, Berkeley, working as a lawyer, and more. Quote, "It was beautiful and sad. I mean, I knew there was no pretense about what was happening," end quote, Vlahos said. Quote, "He was dying. He knew he was dying. I knew he was dying. We knew why we were sitting down to do this," end quote. When the recordings were transcribed, they took up 200 single-spaced pages, enough to fill a binder. Quote, "It's a great resource, but it's also an inert resource," end quote, Vlahos said. Quote, "At the time that I was doing this, and at the time I was losing my father to cancer, I was also getting very interested in artificial intelligence and beginning work on a book on that topic. And it dawned on me that there might be another way that I could share his story and maybe just a hint of his personality," end quote. He started working on Dadbot while his father was still alive, using a program called Pullstring, designed for creative types who have limited programming skills. Quote, "It's not some magical process that you might imagine in a movie where you feed the bot a big binder full of words and it learns to talk automatically and it can talk about everything," end quote, he said. Quote, "It's this sort of labor-intensive process of giving it some things to say that's actually the easier part, and then teaching him to listen for things that people might say back to him and how to respond," end quote. Before John Vlahos died at home in his sleep at the age of 81, surrounded by family on February 17th, he was able to interact with the bot himself. Boy, that's creepy. Stanley, well, yeah, wait. All right, let's keep reading. Quote, "He thought it was really cool. He said something that for me was a compliment. Which was just that he thought the bot sounded like him," end quote, Vlahos said. Quote, "That was good for me to hear, that it had fidelity. It wasn't the sort of strange distortion of him that was unrecognizable to him," end quote. Of course, the Dadbot will always be something of a distortion, he admits. But he's also quick to note that photographs and memories are equally imperfect. Vlahos interacts with the bot every week, trying to test its limits and make it more real. His mother interacted with it once and has asked to have access to it again. Now, okay, Stanley breaking in here for a second. First off, okay, I mean, there's more to read. I don't know, like an 81-year-old person. Now, look, I know people that are in their 80s that, use a computer, write self-published books. They write entire books. I mean, they do all this amazing stuff and they're very, very with it. Okay. But I don't know that many 81-year-olds outside of Silicon Valley, and maybe John Vlahos's dad. Well, he said he's a lawyer. I don't know many people that are like that knowledgeable of what exactly they are seeing and portraying, say in Facebook Messenger or something, to where they could give like an accurate assessment of whether or not something has fidelity. Please understand, and I want to make this clear right now, I am not taking anything away from the tragic loss that Vlahos went through, that his father, the pain that his father went through with lung cancer, all of that. If I have critiques, I mean them with all respect for such a tragedy. Losing a father is a terrible, terrible thing. If you're in a loving family, of course, so I want to be very sensitive to that. If I have critiques, I'm not insulting somebody for being 81 and not understanding exactly how Facebook Messenger works. I'm just trying to bring some reality to the subject. Okay. Same thing with the mother. All right. If the dad's 81, how old's the mother? I would assume relatively close to that age, maybe at the earliest in the 60s, maybe older, who knows? She is not going to have, like Vlahos, the creator of Dadbot, is showing some degree of self-awareness where he's saying, look, I know it's a computer program. Okay. But an 80-year-old person or someone in that age range might not have a full grasp of exactly what that means, and may not be like really mentally capable to do so at that age. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. And that might be concern number one here, but let's read on. Quote, "It's a never-ending process to develop the bot and make it better and better, and I wanted to make sure it's good enough basically before exposing it to my family too much, because them of all people, I don't want to have a poor experience with the bot," end quote, he said. Vlahos is not the first person to use technology to preserve memories of the dead. SafeBeyond, for example, is an app that allows people to record text, audio, and video messages throughout their lives and store them in a quote-unquote digital vault to be released on a schedule to their loved ones after they die. That way, you'll always get a birthday message from grandma. Quote, I think there's a huge appetite for it because it's just ancient and pervasive, right? The desire to keep someone who is gone, to keep them around, end quote, Vlahos said. Quote, what's less clear is how good the technology is. How fast will it get better? We're in a place now where it's not good enough to even be worrisome in any bigger way. But I have wondered, like, what if I could make this perfect version of Dadbot? Would you start to get a little, or would that start to get a little too weird? So that's the story. There's a lot of audio and stuff that you can check out with the link in the show notes for episode 236 on this, but let's break into it. To that last comment, could this get a little too weird? Yeah, I already think it's a little too fucking weird. Because we're not talking about like, I get that software, and I've looked into it myself, when I first heard about it. I know about SafeBeyond. SafeBeyond is not creating a chatbot. Okay, yes, it's recording messages that can be sent as reminders at various points. And you could say, well, where is that different from the bot? I think there's a huge difference because it's really not algorithmically trying to mimic somebody else, as to where what Volhos, whatever, is trying to make here with Dadbot is very much like this attempt at creating something that you can interact with on a regular basis, something that his mother, the wife of the man who died, wants to interact with it. Now, it's very easy today to just say something along the lines of, remember that Black Mirror episode? Right? I mean, my dad used to do that to me, except it wasn't Black Mirror back in the 80s and 90s. It was the Twilight Zone. And he'd say, well, hey, you remember that Twilight Zone episode? Okay. Science fiction is very important. I don't want to get lost in the weeds here on this, but this is important to say. Science fiction, in my opinion, should be, it's fiction. Okay. But it should be treated as commentary, as valid application to society, because in my opinion, and I'm not the only one that thinks this way, science fiction is one of the only ways we can really handle and understand the ever-changing world that we live in right now, the ever-advancing, technologically advancing in other ways, culturally advancing in other ways, out there, is that, like, to understand the present, you have to understand the future. Instead of to understand the present, you have to understand the past. There's truth to that statement too, but I think it goes, it may seem odd or paradoxical, but I think it goes both ways. I think, we need to socially explore the future, and science fiction is the king of doing that. Science fiction is so important. It is, I've said this a billion times. It is the most important genre of any media out there. And I think it's particularly today, because it's the only way we can really comprehend. It's the only way we can really deal, I think, without having a mental breakdown, that we can deal with everything that's going on right now. That's the reason why shows like Black Mirror or The Twilight Zone have always been so like they just seem to touch something so visceral, not just our fear, but just our understanding of what's going on in the world and how everything seems so upside down and topsy-turvy at times. So it's important. Using science fiction as an exploration of reality that's going on right now is a completely valid practice. Any asshat that tells you, well, that's fiction, should tell them to shut the fuck up. Okay, because they obviously, they don't have the imagination to grasp what's going on in the world around them, to even try to grasp it. And that imagination eventually takes shape of something like science fiction, if not directly. Okay? So, of course, there's that episode of Black Mirror where, this company offers a messaging app. Just sounds a lot like Dadbot. Offers a messaging app that will allow you to, because it scanned everything that the dead husband, in this case it was a younger couple and the husband died suddenly or whatever, everything that the dead husband did. And so it could mimic, algorithmically, like talking to her husband. At first it's just text messages. Then it kind of like Volhos is doing, where it's improving, where he's trying to improve it all the time. Because at first it's text messaging. Then there's the beta feature of, it can give you a call. And you can talk to it. Okay. And then eventually it gets to the point to where, we have this other beta program where we will ship you effectively a robot a very fleshy, human looking, perfect human looking robot of your dead husband that works off of that same algorithm. Okay. Certainly, I'm sure, Velhas wouldn't mind if Dadbot eventually turned into a physical, android of some kind, robot of some kind, automaton. Now, I just want to say this straight, okay? Because here's the problem is that, you have in Silicon Valley in general. Now, if this ever really takes off, you better believe the tech giants want to get in on this. Microsoft, Apple, who the fuck ever, Google, you name it. If they're not already creating something like this with the just the massive amounts of data, that they collect as is, I mean, they would certainly have a far more, better chance of creating something like this than Velhas does with just something as seemingly simple as Dadbot, even though, that could go farther. But you better believe that they would very, very much, be interested, in this kind of project. Now, these tech giants, they like to parlay to the populace, to have growth, to keep getting more and more users, because that's all Silicon Valley cares about, right? They don't give a shit about money. They'll just keep blowing through idiot VCs' money. They want you to think, like Apple says this all the time. They want you to think, oh, it's just magic. It works like magic. It works like magic. And this is a problem, not just for something like Dadbot. This is a problem across the board. People don't understand how this technology works. And that allows for, in my opinion, the ability for that technology, or the people who know how to use that technology, to take advantage of the people who think it works like magic. We have a real education problem. I'm not talking about the school system. I'm talking about in general. We've got a real education problem. People are using tools that they have no concept about how dangerous they can be. And I mean, it's one of the reasons I do this show, is to educate people. Hey, you might want to watch the fuck out for this. Oh yeah, you think it's nice, that IoT device is nice? Guess what's going to happen with that IoT device? You're going to run into a whole lot of trouble, and you might even shut down the whole goddamn internet. But if people just think this stuff works like magic, they are not going to have the hint of self-awareness that Velhas has, who created Dadbot, in that, kind of like I said with his mother, like, does the mother understand this is a computer program? Are other people really going to understand this is a computer program? Are they going to have the self-awareness, just the awareness of what exactly they're interacting with? I think people are going to fucking break from reality with this kind of software. Now, I want to quote a hero of mine. And this is a painful thought. I understand that. I understand death is painful. I understand losing loved ones is painful, and you want to hold on to them forever. You have no idea how much I understand that. Okay? But look, Dad's dead. Grandpa's dead. Grandma's dead. They're gone. And I think I would find it disrespectful that I would be misrepresented, that I would somehow go on without me being me. And I mean, and we've talked about this before, even if you uploaded somebody, into a tin can or something, or if you uploaded somebody into a computer, all their memory engrams, all that shit, right? I mean, there's debates to be had around, is a person really real when they do that, blah, 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 certainly, but I'm just saying right now, as we understand things and the limited technology that we have, it's disrespectful to just not let somebody go, to not let their life come full circle and come to an end. Yeah, we want people to live forever, but then, the only way I want them living forever is if it's them. And I think it's disrespectful to everybody else. I think it's disrespectful to Velhas, with his dad. I mean, he can do what he wants. I'm not telling him what to do. Okay. If he wants to make a mimic chatbot of his dad, whatever. Okay. I'm just saying, I really don't think that this is going to be healthy if this becomes popular, because also people will no longer have that closure, and they're not going to be able to, there's a lot of people in my life have died. Some close, some not so close. Some that I have tons of respect for, some not a ton of respect for, especially towards the end. But there's a beauty in death that you get to, that the people that live on after you die, they get to, appreciate you for who you were. Maybe not for what you became. They can remember you for the good things. They can remember you for the beautiful moments. They can remember you for all these things. And it allows you to have that closure. But then if we're creating chatbots of these people, I mean, like that wonderful way that the human mind can handle the loss or can carry on somebody inside, but in a way that uplifts, our own human condition, our own individuality, that goes away. That way, humanity already has enough problems with dealing with death where the mind already breaks and thinks, oh, well, there's an afterlife. Oh, they're in the sky. Which obviously, for Christian, there was a time where I was a Christian and I could not accept the notion that when people die, they go to heaven. Not all Christians believe that, of course. They think sometimes you have to wait until Judgment Day or something. You do soul sleep, right? I could not accept that because I cannot imagine how could it be fucking heaven if even my ancestors had to see the shit I had to go through, say in my 20s, like when I was in the military or something. I knew if I was, my grandparents or something and I was looking down on me, that's not heaven. it'd be terrifying. No. People can always, as long as you remember people, they live on within you in that way. But there's a way that they live on within you where you still respect them by letting them go. This is where I think, if you're doing this whole chatbot nonsense, there's the potential for a false narrative of who a person is and they have no control over it. And again, you lose that ability to, and this is the point I wanted to get to there a minute ago. You lose that ability to, kind of remember people with so much respect and to make precious, a lot of people, especially in the, in the 70s, 80s and 90s, people that grew up in those eras, TV was a major part of their life because probably your parents used the TV as a babysitter, right? Sure. Of course they did. And so when, or the radio, like music really got you through some tough times or something. I understand all of these things, perfectly well. So when, Prince dies or when Leonard Nimoy dies or something like this, some of these big names die. You feel it like it's a member of the family that dies. Like somebody, like the closest of friends just died. You feel it that way, right? But then what happens is, because now they're gone, now there's a new respect, a new appreciation for all of the creative works that they left behind. But those creative works are perfectly representative of them. It's not a dad bot where it's some kind of, some kind of Dr. Moreau creation of what that person was. Some kind of bastardization of what that person was. It was them, and you can remember them for how they wanted to be remembered. That's the respect. Remember them for how they want to be remembered. And I got the feeling that Dadbot's probably chatting out some things because, it's newer software. And I think this will always be the case, even if it was, a little bit more developed or whatever. I imagine Dadbot's doing some things that Daddy Volhas probably wouldn't approve of. And I think that's fucking disrespectful. That's like saying, well, okay, so we've got the idea of Brian Sovryn down. Why don't we make an algorithm that will, after, and I'm not going to die, but, that, if Brian Sovryn died, that could make new Sovryn Tech episodes that would just be like Brian Sovryn. Fuck you! Don't you dare do that! I can't stop anybody, and I wouldn't call any kind of enforcement body on somebody for doing that sort of thing by no fucking means. But don't you fucking dare! Don't you step on my goddamn grave by making shit that's supposed to be somehow respectful of me. That's not me. That's not okay. It's downright disrespectful, in my opinion. It's disrespectful to my memory. It's disrespectful to who I am, who I was, and to what I did as I was alive. And look, and you could say, yeah, but look, Brian Stallion, people are not going to take this that seriously. Are you kidding? In China, what's that app, Xiaoice, from Microsoft, that chatbot? People are falling in love with the fucking chatbot. You think they're not going to take something that is a chatbot representation of their dead loved ones seriously? You think they're not going to fall in love or become addicted or whatever, or have some kind of, relationship with that? When look, that's not the reality. Like I said, they're gone. Let them go. Respect them by letting them go. Hold them in your heart. Have those wonderful memories. Let those memories guide you in life from what you learn from them that's so beautiful. But for fuck's sake, let them go. I know it's painful. This is not a healthy direction to take technology. It's just not. Okay? Because this is the digital version of all the irrationality that religion brings on. You want to have a healthy mindset? Understand, look, that this is the end. You have one shot. Okay? Some people, I saw a video this week, they call it optimistic nihilism, right? You've got one shot, so live it. Live this life, baby. Live it full circle. And everybody that, that's still alive after the person comes full circle, let it be full circle. Let it end. So that we can have all those beautiful memories the way they want to be remembered. Or the way, that you may selectively choose to remember them. Not by somehow continuing memories when they're not here. I mean, to say nothing of, you could bring in the resource cost. Look, I don't want people to die. I want immortality to be a thing for humanity, and I think one day it more or less will be. It will be a thing. So, put your development into that. Put your funding into that. Into figuring out how to let people live forever. Because I don't think that's crazy. That's so crazy a notion. No, Dadbot, not healthy, not a good idea. This is going to lead to some pretty scary places in the human mind and the human condition. I'll be back with more. Woo, baby. You want to talk about something that actually does last forever? Okay, that's kind of morbid. But really, something that does last forever? Gold and silver. Woo! I mean, it has lasted a long, long time. And so why don't you get your hands on some gold and silver through one of the best businesses in the world today, Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Okay, go to rrbi.co or you can go to gold.zog.ninja. It'll take you to the same place. But let them know the Golden Stallion sent you. Go ahead and you can get that gold and silver with Bitcoin. Good old-fashioned Bitcoin, by the way, if you want to do that. They have great prices, very low prices. They have fantastic selection of, gold, silver, platinum, palladium coins, the whole thing. Okay. And they will give you your hookup. They have incredibly fast shipping. I can personally attest to that. It's phenomenal. And you're just going to be dealing with great people that get it. In fact, the guy that runs the place, Tim Fry, I love that man. Total tech geek, liberty-minded, the whole thing. I mean, if you want to, you want to be like a conscious consumer, well, let me tell you how you do that. You shop at businesses, or, you get your stuff at businesses like Roberts Brokerage. Decentralize your wealth. Get that real cold storage, that classic cold storage that's totally offline, right? Because it's not a computer. It's gold. It's gold, it's silver, it's whatever. Get your hands on that stuff. Just go to rrbi.co. Okay. And like I said, let them know the Golden Stallion sent you. I thank them so much for being such a long-time sponsor of Sovryn Tech. It's such an honor to have them on board. Even when I say the crazy stuff, like I did in the last segment, it's such an honor. So Roberts Brokerage, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Woo, baby. Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
It is time for HackSec. And well, I wish we could say we're going to lighten things up a bit, but we're really not going to lighten things up a bit here. We don't have to spend long talking about this, but this is a very interesting admission by the U.S. government. And this story is actually coming from ZDNet. Homeland Security, here it is. The headline says it all. Homeland Security says Americans who don't want faces scanned leaving the country shouldn't travel. Direct quote. Shouldn't travel. Let's read on here. Homeland Security's advice for the millions of Americans traveling overseas who don't want to end up in its facial biometric database is simply not to travel. That's according to the agency's own assessment document published earlier this year, of course that being 2017, of a new so-called traveler verification project to, quote, capture facial images of travelers, end quote, leaving the U.S. The effort aims to help Customs and Border Protection track non-immigrant foreigners and those who overstay their visas. To date, foreigners arriving in the U.S. will have their photo and fingerprints recorded at the border. But Americans are exempt from turning over their biometrics. But now the agency wants to scan the faces when anyone, including Americans, leaves the U.S. Quote, the only way for an individual to ensure he or she is not subject to collection of biometric information when traveling internationally is to refrain from traveling, end quote, says the document. 6 major U.S. airports, including Boston, Atlanta, and New York's Kennedy Airport, have completed trials started under the previous Obama administration with an aim to, so let's keep that in mind. I mean, Trump is not doing anything about this, but certainly Obama started it, with an aim to have the system fully operational by next year. CPB says that it won't know exactly who is overstaying visas until face scans are also carried out at U.S. land and seaports. So guess what? This isn't just happening in airports. Reading on, the assessment says facial scans will be deleted after 2 weeks, but can be retained for longer. Stanley breaking in. Are you fucking kidding me? You think they're not going to keep that longer? My goddamn ass. Of course they are. Of course they are. That's what they have those. That's why the NSA is building gigantic data centers everywhere that they can, or at least trying to. But the data centers are so huge that really, the laws of thermodynamics are fucking with them. Not allowing them to be created, or not allowing them to actually function, thankfully. But anyway, the assessment, so 2 weeks or longer. Privacy advocates argue that it's inching towards a surveillance state. Inching? Who are these privacy advocates that ZDNet's talking to? It's not even a surveillance state anymore, folks. It's a surveillance society. Like, there's millions of people that want to surveil themselves. It's a society. It's not just the state. Hey, Alexa, get my point? Quote, Homeland Security has never consulted the American public about whether Americans should be subject to face recognition, end quote, said Harrison Rudolph, a law fellow at the Center on Privacy and Technology at Georgetown Law, in a blog post. Quote, what's even worse is there is good reason to think Homeland Security's face recognition systems will be expanded, end quote, including to TSA checkpoints before a flight, he said. Congress has agreed several times to extend face scans on foreign nationals leaving the U.S., but critics say that lawmakers never intended for Americans to also become subject to the new measure. Quote, Congress has passed biometric exit bills at least 9 times, end quote, said Rudolph. Quote, in each, it has been clear this is a program meant for foreign nationals, end quote. Trump's executive order specifically limited biometric scans at the border for non-citizens. Jay Stanley, a senior policy analyst at the ACLU, said the CPB is, quote, giving itself the authority, end quote, to carry out facial scans. Quote, facial recognition is the biometric most easily reused for surveillance purposes. It's hard to take someone's thumbprint without their knowledge or participation, but you can take a face print from 100 yards away, end quote, said Stanley. Quote, the government has the greatest power to search at the border, end quote. There's always a very real concern that this is the beginning of a journey down the road towards a checkpoint society. And of course, checkpoint society, end quote, there is, East Germany, right? Papers, please, papers. The Trump administration said Thursday in a diplomatic cable seen by Reuters, it will now require nations to provide, quote unquote, extensive data on passengers to help vet visa applicants as part of an anti-terror strategy. Though the cable did not say what kind of data. Of course it didn't. Countries that don't comply with the memo could face travel sanctions, the report said. Oh boy. Okay. Well, let's break into this. So to be clear, anytime, it's a matter of time that when some kind of legislation passed by the American government is meant to be used against foreigners, I did air quotes there. It is a matter of time before it gets used on its own populace, before it gets used on the American people. Every time. Every single fucking time. All right. What the CIA had been doing for decades suddenly needed to be done domestically. So the NSA gets created. I mean, that's a blanket program enough, to allow for any of this shit. Okay. But just this shouldn't surprise you that, now this is going to be used against Americans. Well, I never thought they would do that. Give me a break. There's problems too with this. Facial recognition. I mean, and I don't know what kind of arguments that they're going to bring up. I mean, you can bring up national security again to track, people perhaps, because you never know who's a terrorist. I mean, that's the way that the government thinks. Of course, they're the terrorists, but, so you want to keep all this data and everything. It sure as hell, like, it better not ever be sold. And I can imagine it happening. It better not ever be sold as, well, this is, just use facial recognition to get access to your, all your data to be able to get onto a plane. You can just use facial recognition instead of you, having to carry a passport around with you and all this other stuff. Look, you only, and don't tell me the technology is going to get better. Facial recognition technology has been worked on, biometrics in general have been worked on literally for over 60 years. And it still fails and sucks ass no matter how much processing power you put behind it. Just take a look at how, the supposedly secure facial recognition for the Galaxy S8, the Samsung Galaxy S8, how that was cracked on the showroom floor. They cracked that facial recognition and broke into systems. And what you think if companies like Samsung, are pimping out facial recognition as some kind of login feature, or like Windows Hello on Windows 10, where you use a special camera to be able to do a login feature? What, do you think that government goons aren't going to use that to get into your systems when they need to? You think the police aren't going to use that to get it? I mean, that database to be able to get access to your shit because you're using everything biometrics. I've said this since the beginning of Sovryn Tech 5 years ago. Okay. Almost over 5 years ago. I said, look, biometrics, it is shit for security. It is always shit for security. It will always be shit for security. Don't even talk to me about mapping heartbeats and all that crap. Even that, I've already debunked that a long time ago. Okay. It's biometrics. There's nothing secure about biometrics. You don't want it to be a part of anything. You don't want it to be a part of your, even in this sense, like to track people and all this stuff. You don't want it to be a part of that. Certainly the privacy advocates are right in being very concerned about this and where this ends up leading. I mean, what, you think the governments could secure? I mean, it breaks the human liberty of privacy in the first place. Okay. So it's unethical straight up. But outside of that, let's say you voluntarily agreed to have my face scanned. Oh, don't you feel precious? Don't you feel so safe? Let's say you did that. Well, how well does the fucking government do with securing your data? Just maybe your voting data. Well, let's see. Oh, what happened a couple weeks ago? 200 million people's, data that they gave, at the voting booth or where, whatever, were potentially leaked and available to anybody that just knew the URL to get access to it. Well, you think some malicious actor isn't going to consider this, this facial recognition repository to be a goddamn, irresistible pot, honey pot to dip their hands into? Oh, fuck yeah, it is. Data minimization, folks. Data minimization. This is a buzzword that I hope spreads a lot more. And I didn't start it, and I know it started in Silicon Valley, and I hope it spreads like wildfire. Okay, data minimization. The only way you can really guarantee, an individual's security is by collecting as little data about them. Not more data, but as little data. That's how you secure people, because then the quote unquote bad guys, the boogeymen more like, but the bad guys, that way they don't have a central hive from which to access all this data about people and do harm and do malicious acts. No, this is a bad fucking idea. I don't care if you're a statist or an anarchist or libertarian or what. There is no way is this a good idea. Biometrics are a bad idea, flat out, in every application. Biometrics and safety? those two words, I mean, that's an oxymoron. Those two words should never stand together. Other than unless it was the sentence, biometrics are not safe. Biometrics do not equal safety. It's so easy to, I mean, anytime you're asking for a central database, it is so easy to say, fuck no. This is a bad idea, because they're bad ideas across the board. But I want to feel safe. Well, if you want to feel safe, get real safety by training yourself. Okay. By having like that innate, almost what could become instinctual power through whatever that is, being knowledgeable, training in some kind of self-defense stuff. I don't know. Okay. But I mean, this is not the way to do it. Biometrics is the guaranteed way to not be secure. But hey, the government knows what's best for you. And like I said, if somebody are going to say, well, this is what Obama did. Look, if Trump doesn't kill it instantaneously with an executive order, and obviously he can write 1 million executive orders a day. You look at how many fucking tweets he puts out. All right. If he doesn't just push out an executive order that says, okay, yeah, destroy all biometrics, we're not going to do biometrics anymore, then he's an accomplice. He's an accomplice. That's it. So he's just as much at fault as Obama, if not more so, for just letting it going on. And like, when good men don't put a stop to bad things, they become bad. I don't know, whatever that fucking quote is. Okay. Trump's never been a good man. I can say that as somebody from New York, but there you go, folks. This is a bad idea writ large. And it's another one of those cases where it proves that anything you want applied to foreigners will eventually be applied to you. And consider that. I know I have some listeners who still believe in the political process. I get it. Okay. I don't agree with you, but I get it. Keep this in mind. Any power you give to the government sooner or later will get used against you, even if you think it has the best intentions of somehow protecting you from outside invaders or some kind of horse shit like that. Okay, really, invaders are in Washington, D.C. Anyway, we'll be right back with more Sovryn Tech. Ooh, baby. We were talking about cryptocurrency and how we live in very interesting times with that. Boy, if you want to keep up to date with those interesting times, or maybe you've never looked into blockchain technology, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and Zcash and Litecoin and all that, maybe you haven't looked into it. Well, here is your opportunity to get on board. Coming up August 8th to August 9th. It's coming up fast. Okay. There is an online summit. It's the 100X Investors Blockchain Investors Summit. And there are going to be some awesome speakers there. In fact, guys that I actually have respect for. Tim Draper, who has been in the tech world and has been, just I don't want to use the term magnate because that has derogatory implications, but who's just been a giant in the tech world for so long, and has some very interesting ideas. I mean, revolutionary ideas, in my opinion. So Tim Draper is, somebody that you want to catch. Stephen Michaels is going to be speaking there, who I am a huge fan of. Stephen Michaels, love that guy. Tatiana Moroz, who doesn't love Tatiana Moroz? Come on. Woo! I mean, she's going to be, she's going to be performing during it. Use the code when you go to get your tickets for this. Again, it's an online summit. Use the code Sovryn20. Okay. Like my name, Sovryn20, Sovryn 20. And to get 20% off the ticket price, go to 100xinvestors.com. That's the website. It's in the show notes as well if you need it. 100xinvestors.com. Use that code Sovryn20. And I think this is going to be a tremendous, I want to see Tim Draper and Stephen Michaels speak. And of course I want to watch Tatiana perform, but there's so many other people there, so many big names that are going to be speaking during it. I think it's a very exciting event and we'll on-road you. There's going to be workshops. I mean, all this great stuff. You want to check it out. 100xinvestors.com.
Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk, baby. And, wow, I am so honored. I just want to give a little round of applause. Woo, woo. Can you hear that? Yeah, baby. Woo. I want to give a round of applause to all of my sponsors. They put up with me, but they know they're reaching out to a ridiculously intelligent and passionate audience. That being you, the Sovrynati, the Sovryn Tech Sweaties, the Sovryn Tech listeners. Okay. And I love them for it. I love them for, allowing for this independent, not just independent in that it's not part of some kind of media conglomerate, but this independent thought, with a lot of independent thinking. And then people tell me there's a lot of independent thinking going on here. A lot of, thoughts you don't get anywhere else, insights you don't get anywhere else, for Sovryn Tech. I really appreciate them doing that. So please do, please frequent the sponsors of the show, because they are part of what's making this go round and round. And of course, the Sovryn Tech patrons. I, just couldn't put out the content I put out if it wasn't for you. I just couldn't. You make this all happen. We keep getting more people on board with it, more sponsors, more patrons, and we're going to take the show all the way to the top. I mean it. It's great things happening with Sovryn Tech, no doubt. So thank you so much. Anyway, let's get into some game talk here. And kind of got to get into a little bit of bad news, unfortunately, because, well, I guess I should say I should have seen this coming, but I was kind of hoping that it wouldn't happen. But we've been tracking for a while, of course, the, Game Talk. We get to talk video games, which is, one of my favorite things in the world. It doesn't beat sex, but, anyway. But we've been tracking the NES Classic, or in other parts of the world, it's called the NES Mini, and kind of the fiasco around the ability or the inability of people to get their hands on one. And I predicted, and it ended up becoming true, that in very short order, there's going to be a Super Nintendo Classic, a SNES Classic or SNES Mini, depending where you're coming from. And Nintendo had made some promises when they announced the SNES Classic that it would, or the SNES Classic, that they wouldn't have, they'd make sure that these supply problems, a lot of this other stuff, wouldn't necessarily be an issue. Now, interestingly, I've heard some, I can't find the direct story that said it, but I've heard it reported that Nintendo said, that they're only going to sell it in 2017. It's going to be, now they're saying, no, this is going to be a limited product. As to where with the NES Classic, they didn't let you know it was going to be a limited product until after the fact. But they said there's going to be enough of them for everybody to go around. Well, I certainly hope that ends up being the case. But so far, things are not looking good, because last Friday, which again, I'm recording on the Saturday the 29th, so this would have been Friday the 21st, at midnight or something, Walmart in the US. Now, in other parts of the world, they're already taking pre-orders for the SNES Classic, so not a big deal there. But in America, this is where the real problems have been. They listed the SNES Classic for pre-order at midnight. Probably either people are working or asleep, or, who knows what's going on at that time. Either way, it's an inconvenient time for most people, because if they're awake at that time, they may be working, or they're half asleep, or they are asleep, or something something like this. And so a bunch of, inside of a half hour, it took about 30 minutes, but inside of a half hour, a bunch of people, got their pre-orders in from Walmart for the SNES Classic. A couple days later, pretty much within 24 hours, actually, some people started getting emails from Walmart saying that, oh, we had to cancel your pre-order. But then other people weren't getting these emails that they had to cancel that pre-order for the SNES Classic. Now, again, this is selling for $80. It's a system, it has 21 games on it. No, it is not just better to get an emulator for this, because it has Star Fox 2 on it, which again, we don't know what that's going to look like, exactly, because it was never, the ROMs that you can download of Star Fox 2 off of torrent sites or wherever else, is not a complete game. So Star Fox 2 might be a finished game. We don't really know, but bottom line being is that, yes, it's worth it to buy this. There are features to it that make it more valuable, or that make it, there's a lot of features to it that make it more, more worthwhile than just doing an emulator. But now there's actually something that an emulator, at least at the moment, cannot do. Is somebody going to port off that version of Star Fox 2 into a ROM and allow you to play on an emulator? Yeah, maybe. That's a possibility. But I hated that argument from people when they said, it's like, oh, well, you could just use an emulator, make a Raspberry Pi or something. No. You're missing the fucking point of the system. There's so much to this. Anyway. So a lot of people thought that they still had the pre-orders, even while other people's pre-orders from Walmart, and Walmart only, were getting canceled. Then fast forward about, 4 or 5 days later, and Walmart announces that they're canceling all pre-orders. Every pre-order that was made. And they said that, well, if you use PayPal, we'll refund you in a couple days. If you used your credit card, you didn't get charged anyway, because you wouldn't get charged until it was available. Or apparently. So, this is not good. Walmart said it was a mistake. The listing wasn't meant to go out. And I assumed somewhere in the reality of this situation, yes, it was a mistake because that is the dumbest fucking time in the world to make it available, right? I mean, it's insulting to every consumer on the planet, or, you know, at least in America. But a part of me also thinks, I gotta say, part of me also thinks that this is really great marketing for the SNES Classic. The thing is, though, like I can imagine even at Nintendo, at Nintendo of Japan, or you know, with you know, maybe with Reggie and you know, and Nintendo of America, them thinking, oh yeah, this, you know, let's make some kind of situation like this or whatever, or you know, or at least let's use the situation as marketing or something like that. Look, the SNES Classic doesn't need any marketing. It just doesn't need it. The people that want it are know about it, and they're going to get their fucking hands on it. And you're probably not going to have enough stock for everybody to be pleased. Hopefully a lot more people will be pleased, but it's still probably, especially if they're saying, look, we're going to end it in 2017, you're probably still looking at a stock that's not going to be enough in some way. But this is so crazy. Like this kind of shit. I mean, the only way that I would, well, I don't like the justice system. I don't believe really necessarily in suing people, but like Nintendo should be taking some kind of action against Walmart, something, because I mean, you really broke some fucking hearts here. You know, there's people who were really holding on to that hope. Oh man. Oh, all right. Well, I didn't get that email. I still have my pre-order. And look, this is exciting, whether it's touching on nostalgia or the fact that these are genuinely some of the greatest video games just ever made, and they still play great to this day. All right. Whatever it ends up being, you know, I mean, people take this stuff seriously. Video gaming's it's legit. It's the real deal. All right. People can get passionate about it. It's fine art. And Walmart really, really screwed with these people. And that's not okay. Now, you know, I'm not going to recommend boycotting Walmart, because I'm going to say do whatever the fuck you need to do to be able to get your hands on one of these things. Myself, I am not going to be like I did last time. I was waiting breathlessly, had everything ready. I was going to rock it out. You know, it was 5 p.m. on the day of release, or on the day of I guess it was the day of release. I don't even think it was pre-ordered. On the day of release, for the NES Classic, and, you know, Amazon flubbed. They flopped. I mean, it was one of the best advertisements to use Microsoft Azure ever, because they fucked it up so hard. Okay. I am not going to go to Amazon. I am not going to, I mean, if they're even doing pre-orders, I'm kind of surprised they're doing pre-orders. I didn't think they were even allowing for that, or that they were going to allow for that in America. I don't know why they can get away with doing it, or why they think it's okay to do it in other parts of the world, like in Europe, but they won't do it in America. It doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. But anyway, I'm not going to be doing that. I will be camping out, as I've said, when I first announced this is coming out. I will be camping out in front of fucking Best Buy, you know, my local Best Buy, and I will be there, and I'm going to get my hands on. And even if I'm telling you, even if they, like, somehow there's a huge line of people, okay, that are buying them out, I'm going to demand. I mean, I will make a scene. I will make a big fucking scene. And I'm going to say, you know, if I get there and if I walk through those doors and somehow they're already all gone, I'm going to say, no, you let me take a fucking picture of those. Like, I want to see the photographic evidence. You know, I mean, it's bad enough that a lot of employees for these stores are actually like buying them out ahead of time. And then they're the ones that are doing all the scalping of these systems, you know, selling them for 4 or 5 times, you know, their actual street value, right? Or the retail value. Yeah, I'm going to, you know, really, like, I can accept that maybe people will buy them all out before I can actually grab one. I'm going to give it my damnedest, but you better believe I'm going to get photographic evidence of the fact that the damn thing exists. You know, and if you have to, you'll see it on, you know, when I take little pictures like that, I usually like to have my watch in it. That way, you know, it's me there. That's what I'll do. I'll be right back with more Sovryn Tech. We don't have to what? What do you mean you don't have to take your clothes off? What a bunch of Okay, no, you don't have to take your clothes off to have a good time, but come on, we all want to, don't we? Who writes lyrics like that? I can't believe it. Anyway, let's get back to Sovryn Tech.
Album of the week.
Ooh, it is time for Album of the Week, and I have a doozy this week. Something I am very, very excited about, because this is coming from one of my favorite artists, one of my favorite musicians of all time, that being Uncle Alice. And of course, if you know what Uncle Alice means, you know who I'm talking about. We're talking about the one and only Alice Cooper, baby. And he just had a new album come out. It's called Paranormal. Just came out 2017. Okay. It's amazing how many albums this guy has, and I mean, he's a whole band, of course, but, just tremendous. And this album, I got to tell you, so this is a more it's a very diversely styled, album. One of the things that I love about Alice Cooper that he has said, at least in the past decade, he has made this claim, is that he doesn't make music to try and get new listeners, or a new audience, or reach out to new demographics or anything like that. He knows the people who are buying his music are the diehards, or the people who've been fans of him for whatever reason for however long. He's not interested in trying to appease, pop culture or anything like that. And I really love that, because not every band can say that. Not every band is successful. Not every, musician is as successful as Alice Cooper, certainly. But that's cool. So this is a very diverse collection. There's some songs that sound more like 70s stuff, some stuff that sounds more like his 90s, maybe even a little touch of 80s here and there. Nothing that really comes off, my favorite, not my all-time favorite. My favorite Alice Cooper albums would probably be Raise Your Fist and Yell, Constrictor, and then like Trash, and Hey Stupid, or Last Temptation, like that. Well, there's that whole like train that runs kind of from Raise Your Fist and Yell all the way up to, say, Dragon Town. Those are my favorite. And that's a span of, a good 15 years right there, of all those albums, Brutal Planet and all that. There's nothing speaking of Brutal Planet, there's nothing on here that sounds like that has a really crazy heavy sound that he delivered with Brutal Planet and Dragon Town. Which those are, it's so tough to say what your favorite Alice Cooper albums are, because I love those albums. Just, they're very different from Constrictor and Trash, but they're still so like, I don't know, they're all on equal footing. They're all so great. Anyway, so nothing from that era necessarily, but there's a lot of, there's a lot of stuff from a lot of his different eras on here. The single that was released for it, Paranoid Personality, is probably the best song on the album. Holy Water is a solid song. I have the deluxe edition that has, that includes live tracks, from a Columbus show recently that's really cool. It's a lot of fun. I love Alice Cooper's present band. I mean, just some phenomenal, his female lead guitarist. She's fantastic. There's so much to like. And, Alice Cooper is one of those guys. In fact, the lovely and hyper intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy and I, we went and saw him. Motley Crue was on their last tour there, the end. We saw Motley Crue, and it was a double bill. It was Motley Crue and it was Alice Cooper. And, Alice Cooper was, this is just a couple of years ago, was still awesome. That's the amazing thing. This guy's in his 70s, and you always talk about how a lot of these rock acts from the 70s or even the 80s or whatever, how they sort of lost their touch. No, Alice Cooper hasn't lost a goddamn thing. He is still, I'm telling you, hard rock and heavy metal, they are the fountain of youth. They really are, either listening to it, playing it, performing it. But like I said, even just listening to it, in my opinion, it's the absolute fountain of youth. It keeps you active, keeps you energized, keeps you rocking. And Alice Cooper is living proof of that. I am such a huge Alice Cooper fan. And this album didn't disappoint at all. I thought it was, I really thought it was incredible. I do want to, we talked about death earlier. I do want to say, what a loss. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, the lead singer, committed suicide, the past, I guess that was a few days ago as of this recording. Wow. Linkin Park, big deal right there. And they just had that new album come out. It was kind of soft. It was different, but I thought it was kind of cool. Like I appreciated what they were shooting for with that new album that came out like at the end of May. It would have been an album of the week, frankly, and maybe it still will in the future, but yeah, my thoughts go out, damn it, Chester. Anyway, We'll be back with some more Sovryn Tech, but check out Paranormal by Alice Cooper. One of the better albums in recent years, even though they're all great. It's Alice Cooper.
The most incredible television event ever, as you join the crew of Battlestar Galactica.
Right here, you creepy crawly. I have led the entire human race to ruin.
The last of mankind, fighting for life in a hostile galaxy.
Most of us are dead.
Alone, with only one hope, Battlestar Galactica and her crew.
There is no other destination.
Commander Adama, Captain Apollo, the intrepid Starbuck, and the dazzling Athena, searching for a new and peaceful world.
May as well live for today. We might not have many left. Let the attack begin.
A new age of high adventure, Battlestar Galactica.
Tool of the Week.
Woo, it is time for Tool of the Week. Man, if you've never seen the classic Battlestar Galactica, what the hell are you doing? Go get watching that. I mean, once you and trust me, like after the first couple, big, well, I don't want to get lost on that. Just wait till you get to Living Legend Part 1 and 2. That's when the show just goes through the roof. Even in War of the Gods. Oh man, I love it. The character of Count Ibley, so cool. There's quotes. People will know when you hear Count Ibley talk and he says certain quotes, you're going to be like, oh, that's what the stallion loves right there. And yeah, you'll get it. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Tool of the Week, where it could be a service, it could be a piece of hardware, it could be just about anything, just something useful for you to walk away with. Now, the large amount of the Sovryn Tech audience is in the United States of America. The rest, I think the other countries that come after it are Canada, followed up by Russia. Denmark is a huge, a lot of European countries, really big fans. Great Britain, of course. And the thousands and thousands, and, I love all of you. Thank you. Anyway, but since, certainly most of my listeners are in the States, this is something you might find very useful. We were talking about a chatbot earlier. Interestingly, also it was a chatbot made from a person who died that was a lawyer. But this is a chatbot this is an area where I think AI and chatbots could be incredibly useful. Okay. And I'm talking about not an AGI, but just, kind of a stock AI. And that is, I think I talked about this years ago when it first came out. It's called Do Not Pay. And what it is, it's an app that's effectively a little AI, basic AI lawyer. That you can install on your phone. I'm going to read a little bit here from The Verge, because now while this was originally only available like in San Francisco and maybe parts of Texas, now it's available in all 50 states. You're going to want to get this. I'll just read quick. A chatbot that provides the free legal counsel using AI is now available in all 50 states starting today. This is following its success in New York, Seattle, and the UK. Oh, I thought it was in San Francisco. Whatever. Anyway, where it was invented by British entrepreneur Joshua Browder. I think there's a couple of these. One of them was in San Francisco. Browder, who calls his invention, quote, the world's first robot lawyer, end quote, estimates the bot has helped defeat 375,000 parking tickets in a span of 2 years. And it's going beyond parking tickets, how this works, but like you can kind of scan the ticket and then the app will handle a lot of the business for you. And depending on how it all works out, there's some kind of small fee. But I mean, to have fucking AI do this treacherous bullshit that, a lot of these things, the laws and all that just shouldn't even exist. But I think it's totally worth it. I mean, this is really cool. So, for example, you can type in questions like, I got an unfair parking ticket, or requests for legal compensation from an airline, or reporting discrimination for a total of 1,000 different categories. Although results only pop up for certain keywords. If the chatbot successfully directs you to the appropriate issue, it can then generate an appeal letter, that you can sign and print yourself. The letters include language like, quote, I believe that the court should exercise fairness in canceling a ticket that is perfectly justified to be canceled, end quote. Or, quote, I feel that the issue of a ticket is an unlawful action inconsistent with precedent, end quote. But if you stump the bot, it triggers a prompt, do you need extra help? And then provides a rather unhelpful link back to Google. So it will only do what it can. But it's worked for a few 100,000 people. So why the hell not? I mean, it's really no cost to you, if it doesn't end up working in your favor. But I think that this, do not pay this kind of application of a chatbot and of like machine learning, which should be I think would be actually the more accurate term in this case. That's cool. Like, go for it. And as more people use it, the bot only gets better, right? Because it knows how to handle more situations, and they can feed that data back, into the entire back end of the actual chatbot itself. So do not pay. Link is in the show notes for that. I mean, and especially just test it out with parking tickets, because parking tickets are anywhere from $5 to $20. I think that's worth trying out an app, to kind of knock it out of the park and automate it. And then you get to fuck with the whole, lawyer industry too. And look, I have friends who are lawyers, and I respect that. But come on, we all know the score there. So anyway, check it out. Do not pay, and I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo, boy, you wanted to do something else nice with your phone. Get your hands on a copy of my new book at darkandroid.info. The book is Dark Android 2017 edition, your guide to securing your mobile device and reclaiming your privacy. Again, just go to darkandroid.info. It'll take you right to the website for the book. It's only $2.99 for the ebook. Eventually there will be physical copies, but you just get this now. Secure your device. This is a great guide for anybody of any technical level whatsoever, from the advanced to the beginners, whatever. It's always great to brush up on the basics too, right? Dark Android 2017 edition. Secure your phone. Let's get back to the show.
Tech history.
Woo! It's time for tech history. And there was a lot of tech history really to talk about. In fact, 36 years ago, almost to the day, this would have been back in 1981. Paul Allen and Bill Gates, at the time talking to IBM and just barely founding Microsoft, bought QDOS, the quick and dirty operating system. I'm going to talk about this more maybe next week on tech history. The rest is, as they say, is history, because QDOS would become MS-DOS. It's DOS. DOS is, it's still in many ways is one of the most, if not the most dominant operating system out there. People may not even realize just how dominant, that it still is. But anyway, we'll save that for next week. What I want to talk about this week was kind of shocking news, that really has to do with tech history, because it's a piece of software that a lot of people have used that people amazingly still use, speaking of like DOS. And that is, it was announced Microsoft Paint to be killed after 32 years, almost as old as DOS. Long-standing basic graphics editing program used throughout childhood since the 1980s has been marked for death. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the story here and we'll talk about it. Microsoft's next Windows 10 update, called the Autumn or Fall in the US Creators Update, will bring a variety of new features, but one long-standing stalwart of the Windows experience has been put on the chopping block: Microsoft Paint. First released with the very first version of Windows 1.0 in 1985, Paint in its various guises would be one of the first graphics editors used by many and become a core part of Windows. Starting life as a 1-bit monochrome licensed version of ZSoft's PC Paintbrush, it wasn't until Windows 98 that Paint could could actually save in JPG. It could save a JPEG. With the Windows 10 Creators Update released in April, Microsoft introduced the new Paint 3D, which is installed alongside traditional Paint and features 3D image making tools as well as some basic 2D image editing. But it is not an update to the original Paint and doesn't behave like it. Now, Microsoft has announced that alongside Outlook Express, Reader App, and Reading List, Microsoft Paint has been signaled for death, having been added to quote, the features that are removed or deprecated in Windows 10 Fall's Creator Update, end quote, list. Okay, so that's all we need to read about that. Now, first off, there was amazingly a crazy uproar. I'm not saying crazy bad, just crazy in size and scope. There was a crazy uproar over this news, that they were going to deprecate Paint from Windows. And because of this uproar, good news here, folks, got some more good news for you. They are going to release Paint, probably not going to develop it, really any further, but Microsoft's going to release Paint as an app in the Windows Store. So all you Windows 10 users, which, if you're using any version of Windows before Windows 10, you're still going to have Paint anyway, because it's only getting removed from Windows 10. All of you Windows 10 users, you can still use Paint. And kudos to them. That's how you do it. When you end of life services, this is the right way to make it happen. You're like, okay, well, we're not going to make it an integral part for whatever security reasons. Okay. And I'll talk about that more in a second. We're not going to end of life it, we're not just going to get rid of it and let it go. You can just release it and put it into a sandbox platform like the Windows Store and like UWP apps are on Windows 10. And that way it's not really a security issue, and those that actually want it can still get it. And it's no skin off of, there's almost no effort on Microsoft's part to do this. This is the right way that you end of life a feature, that you end of life a service, an app, a piece of software. They didn't open source it. That would have been, 100% the right thing to do, but this is 99% the right thing to do. You still make it available, even if you're deprecating it. Now, the reason that they're deprecating it honestly makes a lot of sense. The reason that they're deprecating a lot of things within it makes a lot of sense. And here are the reasons, because there are features that they know, because they collect tons of metrics on Windows 10, that a lot of people may not use. Okay. And the more features you have, the less secure your system is. We talk about this all the time, okay? Is software minimalism. The less amount of software you have, the less gateways are available to be exploited by a malicious actor, by a malicious hacker or something like that. Okay, so I don't disapprove of Microsoft, taking this tack, but they're doing it, even so, they're doing it the right way where you can still use Paint. You're just going to have to get it through the Windows Store. And like I said, if you're using anything older than Windows 10, you're going to have Paint forever. So, don't be like, oh, they're getting rid of Paint in Windows 7. No, they're not. You can still use it. And it's making way for, other tools as well, like Paint 3D and all this, even though that's not a replacement for Paint. And lots of people still use, Paint, good old fashioned Microsoft Paint for like its screenshotting abilities and some other things. I remember, same for me. It was in many ways, other than on the Commodore 64, it was in many ways my first, graphics editor that I used. In fact, I made it myself almost pixel by pixel. This is how much time I had as a kid, I guess. But at the time, the hotness at the time was, was obviously Star Trek has always been the biggest deal in my life. Deep Space Nine they're going into season 3 or whatever, where they had the Maquis storyline. And I thought the Maquis were so cool. I thought that was just badass. It's like, oh yeah, like rebellious Starfleet people. It was like Star Trek 3 with more people, where Kirk goes rogue and all this. I thought that was so cool. I made the Maquis symbol. They have a symbol. It almost looks like the Rebel Alliance symbol, honestly. I'm sure that's not unintentional. But I made that symbol in Paint, pixel by pixel. Cause you could zoom. That's the nice thing with Paint, is you could zoom right in and you could color pixel by pixel. And I did that. I did all kinds of crazy shit. Like I made like the space shuttle, like all sorts of stuff. Paint is a lot of fun. It was, cause it had such a very simple, and it still does, a very simple user interface that's, in my opinion, pretty intuitive. So it would have been a loss if it went away. And it's not to say that, it's the greatest graphics editor, by no means. Even GIMP is better than that. And I know a lot of people hate GIMP. I don't. I don't understand the hate for GIMP. I kind of understand it. But I've never been into Photoshop, so GIMP has always been fine for me. I think that's my, my outlook on it. But yeah, Microsoft Paint, just solid, and it's just so many people are so used to all of the functionality that it has and everything. I think I got away from it for a while because, like they said, how it wasn't until Windows 98 that you could even have a JPEG. Well, one of the things, at 98, in that time frame, is when I became a Mac user for for a few years until Apple screwed up everything. So like Windows 98, I sort of skipped. I used it here and there, but I sort of skipped. But yeah, part of the reason I didn't use Paint was JPEG was the order of the day on the internet, in many ways still is. And so Paint was just doing bitmaps, was doing BMPs. So that didn't work out for me. So I got away from using Paint fairly early on, like after Windows 95. And then of course, when I became a Mac user, I didn't use it anymore. But yeah, it is a solid little piece of app, a solid little piece of work. In fact, I think I was talking about on the Patreon Wednesday Q&A episode this week, I was talking about how I still use notepad.exe, right? The exe. I still use Notepad like nonstop, and I've even installed it with Wine on Linux. Some of the software sticks with you. So I'm glad Paint is still going to be around. It has really an illustrious history, and so many people use it. So good on you, Microsoft, for keeping it around.
Babylon 5 ended a great war and united 100 alien races in peace. Danger didn't die. It just went underground, with new heroes and new evils to carry the torch.
We need to make sure they all understand we will not be intimidated.
What is wrong with you people?
We have to pit him against himself.
It's an entire new season of Babylon 5 with all new episodes.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
The climax.
It is time for the climax, and I am here to deliver the goods. And we're going to be going long, affiliates. But I don't know. Not everybody's necessarily into all the geeky shit that I am that listens to Sovryn Tech. But those that are usually become patrons, and you know how much geeky shit you get with, when you become a Sovryn Tech patron. I'm here to do the review again. When it's the climax, I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. It doesn't even have to be tech related. And I'm going to talk about, this is kind of tech related, but I am doing my review, and people love my movie reviews. I am reviewing War for the Planet of the Apes. It's been out for a couple weeks. You've had time to see it. So spoiler alert, that's all you're getting. There's going to be spoilers. Not necessarily intentionally, but they're going to be there. So let's get into this. Let's talk about it. And I guess I'll just say right out of the gate, I thought this movie was fucking awesome. And in many ways, it's a seminal film. Seminal in meaning that I think it